Welcome to the Informed Pregnancy and Parenting Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Elliot Berlin. You know what? Many of our clients decide not to go back to work after having a baby, and some of them decide to start a business so they can be in control of their own schedule. On this episode, we're going to discuss some of the important elements of starting and running your own business. Joining me today is an expert in finance and business. After graduating from high school, she immediately joined the U.S. Air Force, where she served for 8 years. She has an undergraduate accounting degree from Auburn University, master's in accounting and finance from Keller Graduate School, and is a California CPA. She's worked with Fortune 500 multinational companies such as Marriott International, Verizon, Harley-Davidson, and my favorite, Mars. She now runs her own consulting business using over 2 decades of knowledge and experience to help others realize their dream of starting and running a successful business. Sharkeith Franks, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Oh, my goodness. First of all, I love chatting with you always. And then after reading up on you, I'm like, okay, I need your business card. Client.
Okay. You have a business card already, though.
Hired. I know. I need to use the business card.
Yes.
All right. I have so much to talk about. There's a lot of great insight with you. But before we get into the meat and bones, basically, I want to talk about really 2 different things. One is starting a business and some of the key elements and factors to think about when starting your own business. And then the second one, after the break, we'll come back and talk about running a business, some of the things, the tasks that have to happen on a regular basis and how to do them properly and efficiently and how a consultant really helps with all of that. But before we jump into that, what an interesting background you have. Where did you grow up?
I grew up in Shreveport, Louisiana.
How was that?
It was nice. I didn't know any different back then because I spent most of my time in Louisiana, except for the occasional summers I would come to California.
What did you like about it or dislike?
I liked that the community was not too big, so I knew a lot of people. My family was there, so I could always be like, Mom, I'm going over to my aunt's house and my uncle's house. My grandparents was there. Growing up in Louisiana, I got a chance to actually learn how to farm. So my grandparents had a farm.
What kind of farm?
We had all type of vegetables, all type of peas, greens.
Wait, so you did
corn.
all the stuff like planting and harvesting?
Planting and harvesting.
Plowing?
Even to this day, I still have like a little place on my knuckles where we used to shell peas in the morning time. We even had chicken coops. We had hogs.
No kidding.
So I got a chance to experience that life.
That's really cool to me.
Now,
like I do all my farming at Ralph's, and I still find it difficult.
But the funniest thing is now if you were to say, hey, Sharkeith, I want you to help me plant a garden, I'd be like, no.
No, like you're not into it but you still have the know-how.
I know the how. I have the know-how, but I'm not into it. I think because I did it so much when I was younger, and now I'm like, I could just go to Ralph's.
Yeah.
Whole Foods.
You don't even have to. Instacart. Hello.
Right. Just be like, hey,
Farm
I'm going to
comes
come pick
to
it up. They'll come to me. So that's what I loved. But as soon as I finished high school, 2 months later, I was on the plane headed to the Air Force.
Yeah. Well, how does that happen? I mean, how do you go from farming to Air Force?
So when I was actually a junior in high school, I told my mom I wanted to go to Georgetown University. And my mom was like, okay, we'll see how that works out. Well, right before my senior year, she said, babe, I can't afford to send you to Georgetown. In my mind, this tells you who I am. I was determined. I was going to Georgetown, and we're going to figure out how to get me there. So when I started research, I was like, I can go to the military and that pay for my education. So I actually signed up the January before I even graduated from high school.
Wow.
And I was so excited.
Why Air Force specifically?
Because I had a cousin in the Air Force and a cousin in the Army.
Okay.
So talking to them, they both said, you are more the Air Force material because you are smart and you like books, whereas Army is more of sleeping outside in the sleeping bags all the time and just getting ready for war all the time. So I was like, well, you know what? Air Force?
Yeah, I mean, when you sell it that way, I'm like, if I have to pick, I'm going to be in the Air Force eating Mars bars.
It was the best choice I made. At 17, I was stationed in Aviano, Italy.
Oh, wow.
So at 17.
Wait, so you started at 17?
At 17.
No kidding.
My birthday's in October.
What were you doing in Italy?
I was supply chain manager.
Wow.
So, well, okay, that's what my job title was.
Yeah.
But because I was so young, right, I've left home. I'm away. My mom just can't pop up and see me whenever she wants to. So this is the time, like most kids at that age, like I just want to get out and party and just have a good time. So when I was in Italy, I didn't really take it all in like I would now. I was back then. Sense. I just wanted to go party, get in by 4 a.m., get 2 hours of sleep, get up, get dressed.
But you could do that in the Air Force?
Yes.
Oh, it sounds more and more enticing than.
So, after I left Aviana, I went to Hawaii.
Wow.
So Hawaii was awesome too.
How long were you in Hawaii?
I was there for 4 years.
No kidding. On different islands or on the same island?
Same island.
Which island?
The Big Island.
Ooh, volcano.
Yes. So it was nice.
Well, now, they have Air Force Base?
They do.
They also have an interstate, which is weird.
It's very weird.
Where does that drive to?
It just drives to another part of the island.
But it's an interstate.
I know, but they have to. They're part of the U.S., so they have to use some of the same terms that we have.
Oh,
so
I see.
It just kind of works together. But it was nice. I really enjoyed being there too because, of course, being young, I'd never traveled to those places. So, just to be able to step outside of my norm and do something that I never thought that I'd be able to do at that young age, I was all for it.
8 years. And then did they pay for your education at Georgetown?
They did. Well, I didn't get a chance to go to Georgetown.
I see that.
So what happened was when I was getting ready to get out, I said, you know what? I need to go ahead and get my bachelor's. And I was already in Montgomery, Alabama. And I said, I know I'm not going back to Shreveport, Louisiana. I'll just stay here and I'll just get my bachelor's degree. And that's what I did. I just stayed in Alabama and got my degree.
Did you know you wanted accounting from the get-go?
So at the age of 9, I knew. The look on your face is like, what?
I'm just curious what you're going to say.
At the age of 9, I knew I wanted to be a CPA.
Were you just brilliant with math? Were you a human calculator? Why? At 9, I didn't even know what chocolate or vanilla yet. I was still coming into myself.
At the age of 9, my grandparents, my mom and aunts would always ask me, what do you want to do when you grow up? So I remember my grandmother saying, well, probably not a nurse, not a doctor, because you're not really big on blood and things like that. She's like, you're good at helping people, but you're not good with the blood side of it.
All right, check that off the box.
My grandpa was like, you're probably not going to be a police officer because I just can't see you like chase behind criminals. Like, you don't have the patience for that.
I can see it on roller skates.
On roller skates.
Because you have like cops on bikes and cops on motorcycles. I think cops on skates.
That would be really dangerous, though.
Maybe not. You're good at it.
I am good at it now.
Yeah, we'll just put like a little light on you.
On my head and just...
Pull over. Or maybe now on a bird or a lime.
Maybe. But I knew I didn't want to be a firefighter. So I was like, what am I going to do? And I was always really good with numbers. Always.
Like literally 8 or 9 years old.
8, 9 years old.
Like when everybody's doing their timetables, you get it quicker than other people.
So what was happening was that I had 2 older cousins. One was 6 years older than me and one was 8. So when they would do their homework, I was sitting with them when they did their homework. So, of course, they're working on math that's more advanced of what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And so I'm in class, and the teacher, I'm like, turning my paper over. Teacher's like, you can't be done. I'm like, I'm done.
Wow.
And every time the funniest thing is, my 2nd grade year, every single day, a teacher called home to my mom to tell my mom that I was doing my work too fast. And my mom, for the whole year, every day, I would get in trouble.
Why? It's not like you were Googling it.
Because the teacher was calling home. So one of my other teachers told my mom, she said, you need to think about it. Nobody else is calling home on your daughter except for this particular teacher. So my mom thought about it. And so finally she asked the teacher, is she disturbing the class when she gets finished early? Teacher said, no. She said, are the answers not correct? Teacher said, no, she gets 100% every time.
I don't understand why they're calling home.
Right. She said, I don't understand why you keep calling me then. And she said, because she shouldn't be able to do the math problems that fast. She should take her time. And my mom told her, she said, the thing is, she does the homework with her cousins who are teaching her the math skills. Because my cousin's things were, you got to know how to count money. And I was like, you're right.
Roger
so
that.
At that point, I was like, well, what can I do with numbers since I was so good at it? I'm getting in trouble for it, so I need to make the best out of it. And when I started looking at different options, talking to one of my youngest uncle, he said, you should be a CPA. I was like, what is that? So when he explained it to me, I was like, that's what I'm going to be. I'm going to be a CPA. And I never wavered from that. I took classes sometime during the summer. I became the treasurer of my church. When I went to college, I had just the right number of credits. I didn't have anything over. I never changed my major. It had always been accounting.
Wow. And then you did graduate in accounting and finance.
I did graduate in accounting and finance as well.
And you did corporate stuff.
I did corporate stuff, which for me, when I look at it, I've worked at some places that I would have never thought a young girl from Shreveport, Louisiana would ever have the opportunity to work at. Never. Growing up, my mom worked in a place that made ceiling towels. My aunt, she worked at AT&T, so she made phones. My grandfather worked in a milling company. My grandmother didn't work. My uncles were truck drivers or worked in steel companies. So I would have never thought that I would have the opportunity to work for a Marriott or for a Verizon or for a Harley, even for a Mars. I remember when I went to Harley, it was so surreal. Like, when they kept telling me the name because I had to fly up there, I just was like, okay, Harley Davidson. But when I literally walked into the lobby and saw the motorcycles, because I love motorcycles, I was like, oh my goodness, this is the Harley Davidson. Like, I totally had a moment.
And you worked there.
And I worked there. I moved to Milwaukee and I ended up working there for 2 years. I never thought that those type of companies I would have ever worked for. Was
it what you expected?
It was what I expected, believe it or not.
Do you like being with big companies? Corporate America?
It has its ups and its downs.
Like everything?
Like everything. Working in corporate America, you get a lot of exposure. You learn new tools. You can get a lot of different projects. But when you are working with smaller companies, it's more intimate. So you have more one-on-one, and you're really able to see what the client or the company is really trying to do at a lower level versus at the top level when they're just giving you very general, and you're like, well, hopefully this is going in the direction that we want to go in. But when it's a smaller company, it's more intimate and you can just get more involved, and you sometimes have your hands in more pots than not. When I worked at Mars, I was in a small division, so I was able to be in marketing and sales and supply chain and still run all of accounting and finance. So
do you find your Air Force training came in handy through your career?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Because so with the Air Force, you become a stickler for deadlines. And of course, when you work with somebody else, there's typically always deadlines.
Yeah.
So that just helped me be more proactive to make sure I meet my deadlines and to look at situations before they kind of happen so that I don't have to be reactive and always fighting fires. I could kind of be ahead of the curve, and that's something that they teach you actually in the Air Force.
I've always, even when I work for other companies and now that I have my own, I've always found that working with either military or athletes, those two groups of people, there's just tends to be, I'm generalizing, but there's really good work ethic and pushing through till you get everything, where it needs to be when it needs to be there.
Right.
So, yeah. And the way you described Air Force, I never thought I could be in the military, but now I'm like,
you could have. Anybody can be in the military as long as you can run the 2 miles in 30 minutes for your PT training.
That's it.
But you can walk 2 miles in 30 minutes. Let's think back to your younger version of yourself.
All right.
When you were at level 20, right? Not age 20, but level 20.
Yeah.
You could walk 2 miles in 30 minutes. That was the biggest challenge. Everything else, getting through.
I could party in Italy.
You can party. And that's a thing. So, the partying part, that part.
Yeah,
but it still had its challenges because at one point I also was working, I was in the supply chain. So supply chain was pretty much all men. Yeah. So I was one of the few females. So that had its challenges, which is my first time having to deal with being one of the only females and having to deal with a lot of men. And then so when I got into regular corporate America, that's always been a situation I worked in corporate America. I would normally be the only female at that level and a room full of men. So the military helped me be able to cope with that as well.
Your company, when did you start your own company? What sparked that?
So I started thinking about starting my own company in beginning of 2017. And then I actually went full force with it about October last year this time. What happened was I was working with Mars. So Mars moved their division that was here to Chicago.
Okay.
And since I had already had my feel of living in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and had enough blizzards, having my car snowed in, having to dig it out, I was like, I'm okay with staying here in LA. I'll continue to pay for the sun. And at that point, I decided, I can take the knowledge and experience I've gained from all these companies and put it into my own company.
And your company is called Ninth Level.
It is.
What does that mean?
So Ninth Level, the number 9 means the completion of a cycle.
It's also when you knew you wanted to be a CPA.
Well, you know what? I never thought about that.
I'm glad I can help you.
So ninth means the completion of a cycle of growth, and nth means to the utmost level. So when you put them together, you're completing a cycle of growth all the way up to the utmost level.
So you're taking a company as far as it can go.
Yes.
All right. I want to talk about how to get started with a company.
Okay.
But before we get to there, what does a consultant do for a company?
So a consultant comes in and can do whatever you ask them to do. You can just be like, I just want you to come in an hour and just sit at your desk and like you're doing something. Typically for me and my clients, they want me to come in and help them with getting their books in order, helping them get their supply chain together, put in an accounting system, or they want to just outsource their chief financial officer's responsibilities because they don't want to pay somebody to be there every day, all day. When I could do the same thing they're paying somebody 40 hours a week for, I probably can do in 10 hours working from home. So it's a broad range. I also do even simple work where I do just basic accounting and finance. Somebody just wants somebody to come in and just do the bookkeeping or close the books for them.
What about audits?
We can do audits as well.
Yeah. I mean, these are all, I think at some point, every small business needs those services, and it's sort of daunting to find the right person to do it.
It is daunting, and the thing is, you want to find the right person, and you want to find somebody that you can trust, and somebody who has your best interest.
That's the thing.
At heart.
You see, you're targeted all the time, through various platforms by people who know you have a small business and they want to sell you their services, but it's hard to know if you can trust them coming in from that platform.
That's absolutely correct.
But
That's
right.
I
mean, you're a roller skater.
I am a roller skater.
Before we take our break, let's talk about the top few things to think about when you're going to start your own business.
So the first thing I tell people all the time is think about what type of entity do you want to have? Do you want to have a sole proprietorship? Do you want to have a partnership? Do you want to have a S Corp or a C Corp? Do you want to have a limited liability corporation? And for a lot of people, it really boils down to how many people are in the organization, because only one that can't have one person is a partnership.
That seems weird.
Partnership, you got to have at least two or more.
Right. Even just for the word.
Even just for the word. And you can do a limited liability partnership as well. So there's two different versions of that. I tell people, if you're going to do just one person, you look at the tax piece of it, right? So as a corporation, if you just one person, the taxes do not roll back to you personally. The tax goes to the corporation, and that's just taxed on the bottom line profit or loss. If you do a sole proprietor or you do a partnership or you do a limited liability corporation, the taxes roll back to your personal income tax, whether that's a profit or a loss.
Okay.
And sometimes for some people, it's hard to plan for that because what if you have, say, for instance, the company that started these new scooters that we see all
Limes
over
and
town,
birds,
right? So if they came in, their profit is probably more than what they initially thought it was going to be because it has really taken off, and even other states are looking at implementing this as well. So that means that their LLC, whatever profit they have, they would divide it based on the percent of ownership of the company, and it rolls back to your 1040.
Okay.
So I always tell people that's the first thing you want to look at. You want to get that done correctly, because what you do not want to happen is have the IRS come looking for you for that situation.
But for having the wrong entity?
Correct.
Okay. At what point is it important to establish the entity?
I typically tell my clients, once you've made about $10,000 to $15,000, you want to go ahead and get established, because that can make a huge difference, especially now that some of the tax laws have changed. And also, if you have a spouse who's making money and you guys file taxes together, sometimes that can swing your taxes one way or the other.
Okay.
So you just want to be mindful of that. I tell people just go ahead and get it done.
Is it hard to do?
It's not really hard to do. It's just a lot of paperwork for the most part. So CPAs can do it. Also, attorneys, they do the same paperwork. And some people, you can just go online for some places and just file paperwork yourself online and just submit it online. California does not allow for you to do any filing online. You have to do everything through the mail.
Oh, through the mail. Yeah, that seems modern. Okay.
The other thing I tell people to make sure they have set up correctly, my next thing is I tell people have your checking and your savings accounts set up and separated from your business. And I'm going to give you a really good reason why.
Separate the business from your personal?
From your personal.
Yeah.
Because I knew somebody who had set up their company as an LLC. And as an LLC, you are not liable if somebody sues you personally.
Right.
But this particular person was commingling their funds, their personal and their business. So when they went to court for the lawsuit, the person was able to show that, hey, they're commingling their funds together. They've pierced the veil.
There's no difference between the LLC and the individual.
Correct.
Wow.
So they was able to sue them personally and the company.
Right.
So I also people.
Does the company need a savings account?
Well, some companies use a savings account just to help build, like just put a little bit in and just help build it up. And then if they need it for a rainy day, they can go and
shift
they can
it
pull
over.
it. Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. All right. I'm already fascinated, but it's time to take a break.
Already?
Yeah. We're going to come back in just a minute with Shar on the Informed Pregnancy Podcast.
This podcast is a proud member of Parents on Demand, a network of high-quality shows for families just like yours. Download our free network app on Apple and Android and listen to your favorite episodes on the go.
Welcome back to the Informed Pregnancy Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Elliot Berlin, and we are continuing our chat with the lovely and talented Sharkeith Franks. All right, so we're just getting into starting a business. Pick the right entity, file it properly, start your own bank accounts, keep it separate for the business from your personal. Where do we go from there?
The other thing is credit cards.
Ooh.
Because you will want to build your own business credit. When you first start off, you're going to start off having to use your personal name as a backer. And over time, as you establish credit, you'll stop doing that.
As the company develops its own
right. It have its own credit history through what they call DUNS, D-U-N-S. It's the credit bureaus that we use for personal. That's a credit bureau basically for businesses.
Okay.
So you do want to build your business up as far as your credit, especially if you're going to be using vendors. So if you're going to be doing anything with inventory, trying to get different credit limits, buying property, you want to make sure you build that up so that when you go out and buy, you can buy it in your business name and it's not in your name.
Or lease cars or things like that. If you have no credit history, you're going to pay a lot more.
You're going to pay a whole lot more. So you want to make sure you do that. Just the other thing is that when you start, use the same accounting method the whole way through. So if you, for instance, are a cash entity where somebody does something, you provide the service, they pay cash for you, be a cash all the way through. Don't try to change over to accrual method where you're invoicing somebody and they're paying you later, because that can be a headache.
In your accounting, when you're keeping your books, you're saying there's two different methods.
Yes.
For accounting, and it's based on how you get paid for your product or services.
Right. If
you get paid right away,
that's cash.
On demand, like at the time of service.
Yes. That's
cash, and you do your accounting one way.
Correct.
And if you provide a product or service and then invoice and get paid later, that's accrual?
That's accrual.
And it's a totally different system for accounting.
So different process.
So what about, there's no businesses who do both?
No.
It's one or the other?
One or the other.
All right. I like cash.
Most companies like cash because they see everything right away and they don't have to go through and, see if all my invoices are posted.
Seems like a lot of extra work.
It can be. But companies that have inventory or consumer product companies, those companies generally are on accrual basis.
Mm-hmm. I mean, in healthcare, it could go either way also. With insurance companies, a lot of times you send out a bill, the insurance, then the insurance pays you some, but not all of it. Then you have to bill the patient for the rest.
Right. So that's still an accrual method, though, because
that's accrual.
Invoicing.
That's what I'm saying.
Method.
But then there's other cash practices where you just pay at the time of service, and then,
Right. Like when I get my hair done, right?
Yeah.
I pay at the time of service.
How long does it take you to get your hair done?
So my hair is braided to the side right now.
Yeah.
And to get my hair braided like this, it took me about 4 hours.
My haircut takes 4 minutes.
I know,
I'm
but
just
this
saying.
lasts me.
Yours
for
is
a
way
month.
better. Mine lasts. Mine's lasting longer and longer, but that's a separate story.
So this will last me for a month,
Yeah.
and I'll take it down and I'll do something different
Yeah.
in maybe like a week.
Mine lasts about 3 weeks, and then, whatever's grown back. Long story. Back to you. All right, so now we have we've picked our accounting method. Is there do you recommend a particular accounting software or?
So the software that's really popular with most small businesses and medium-sized businesses is QuickBooks. Mm-hmm. They give you a 30-day free trial.
Ooh.
And they have so many different tiers. They pretty much have a tier that fits any business, and they have a lot of add-ons.
Okay.
So say
Add-ons
for
that
instance,
you can buy upsell?
upsells where you can buy through third-party companies. For instance, there's a company now called T-Sheets. I just did a call with them the other day. So T-Sheets is like a timekeeping method for people who have employees or contractors that work out in the field.
Okay.
So let's say you sent me out to see a patient. I could start the clock when I get in my car. It'll even show you the route that I took to get there. If I stopped at McDonald's.
Oh, it's like an app for the phone?
There's an app. So it'll show you all the stops I made, when I got to the client. It'll show you when I got finished with the client and when I clocked out.
Oh, so it also gets mileage.
Yes.
That's
So it
pretty
gets
cool.
everything for you in the app. So those type of apps you can pull into QuickBooks to help just make things easier for you as a business owner. So that's the one that a lot of companies use.
QuickBooks.
Is QuickBooks. And QuickBooks give a lot of training as
Is it
well.
in a cloud or you run it off a server?
So they just got a cloud version a few years ago, and they also have a software version, which they don't even sell the software version anymore, except for a certain part of their tax part. They have
So it's
software.
cloud you can access from anywhere. I can do some of it from home, some from the office.
You can do it on your phone. You can
Whoa.
do it from wherever. So I have clients who are traveling nurses. They have it on their phone so they can clock their mileages. When they're out eating lunch, they take a picture of their receipt. It saves automatically in the software. And when I go in, I can just see everything they've done. It even shows when they've gotten paid. It shows me everything. And I can see in their app what their current tax liability is at the end of each quarter.
Oh, that's cool.
So if they're running into what they may I can be like, oh wait, look, you need to get more expensive because you're in the red.
I can always buy stuff. Yeah.
You're in the red. You might want to
Hey.
go do something about that. So I'm able to see what they're doing because I have the accountant version. So anybody who's my client, I can just log into my version and I can see what's going on with
That's
them at
pretty
any
cool.
given time.
Oh, that's amazing. All right. Anything else in the startup department? Things to be aware of?
Just make sure if you're doing something that requires a license, that you get the license, and that if you need to register with your city or your state, that you register properly because you don't want to get hit with those large fines.
Talking about a professional license or a business
Professional
license?
license, business license, all of those.
Tax, seller's permit?
Seller permits, you want to make sure you get all those. And each city, county is different.
We used to have 7 offices, and they're all in different cities. They're all in the Los Angeles area, but Santa Monica's its own city. LA's separate.
Right.
Sherman Oaks, I think, may have been part of LA. But then we had Orange County, Costa Mesa was its own city. So, and Redondo Beach and Long Beach. So it was sort of one business in a pretty close geographical area. But
Right.
every city we had to have a business license, and what was required to get them was different from city to city.
And sometimes I don't understand. I'm literally, Torrance and Hawthorne is right next to each other, or Torrance and Redondo Beach. Why is things so different? But it's like that. Everybody has to get a piece of the pie. Mm-hmm. So you have to make sure you're up to standard on all of them.
Why would you say pie? All right. So now that you got the business up and running, there's practical things that have to get done on a daily, weekly, monthly, annual basis, quarterly.
Yes.
Where do you start?
So on the daily basis, I tell all my clients this, especially startups.
I'm taking notes.
Check your cash balance every day.
And it's not just cash.
Right. You want to check your cash, check your credit, check anything that's dealing
Anything
with
you
money.
collected for the day?
Yes, whatever you've collected for the day, check it. Whatever you may have going out, check it, because what you don't want to do, don't want to be constantly spending and there's nothing there.
Okay.
So you want your cash flow to even out. So
Every day?
Every day.
Okay.
So what I tell people is,
How long does that take?
doesn't take long. It doesn't take long to click the buttons and be like, oh,
Just
okay, I'm good.
Let's see what's here, see what's there.
Just make sure you're good. And I tell people all the time, I tell people, go ahead and check, because you'd rather make sure that it's all there than you getting a call from the bank or you're somewhere like, oh, wait, it denied my transaction, right? And also, I tell people, try to have a daily budget amount that you're going to spend if you're doing a lot of spending. Because, see, some companies do way more spending than they do receiving.
That doesn't sound like a winning
That's not a winning practice, but it happens. So make sure you check that. The other thing is note whatever transactions that you have going on throughout the day. So if you had to take somebody out to lunch, go ahead now. We have smartphones. Take a picture of that business receipt, save it in your phone. If you know that you made a sale while you were out on the road and you didn't have an invoice to give them and it wasn't a cash sale, go ahead and record those sales. Because if you have inventory and you start shipping things out and you don't record your sales, your inventory now is off. If you take a picture of the receipts as you go and you save them in your phone, like I save receipts under a box on my phone called receipts. So if I'm going to save my receipts, that way at the end, I'm not trying to recall
what I spent money on
and wonder why I can't remember anything, because I probably have spent so much money that day. So those are the things I tell people to do on a daily basis. Check your cash and note your transactions for the day.
Does QuickBooks have an app for that? Like whenever you get receipts that you can just load them in?
They do. You can just take a picture of the receipt, attach it, and it automatically goes into your file.
Ooh, I like that. Easy peasy. So those are 2 daily things to do.
2 daily things to do, yes.
And weekly?
And then weekly, if you are an accrual-based company, you want to make sure that you invoice your customers, right? Because the only way you're going to get paid is if you send an invoice. And also check for unpaid invoices. So if you invoice somebody 30 days ago and they haven't paid you yet, you may want to send a follow-up.
Does that not pop up automatically?
For some people, they don't have that type of accounting system. Like QuickBooks would give you a message saying, hey, the invoice is past due. And what you can do is have the invoice resent to them and you can make notes. So if I invoiced you, we can make notes in that invoice so we both can see, like, hey, I'm resending you this invoice. I haven't gotten payment. You can reply back, oh, Sharkeith, I totally forgot. I'm doing it now. Or can I have 10 more days? Whatever the case is, and you can pay your invoice from right there and it'll go away. But some people don't go back and check after they've invoiced somebody to see if they've gotten the money. And that sometimes is what causes companies to have a lot of downfall. You have so many open invoices that you've sent out and you've never followed up on them to get your money back.
Yeah. That's what I was going back to earlier, that the accrual just seems like a big headache.
It can be, definitely. But most big companies, like especially in corporate America, those companies are pretty much all going to be on accrual basis.
But they have automated systems for making sure that
you would think so.
I would think.
The automated systems are the humans.
Right, but in a smaller company, there's usually not that many humans. So
right.
So it just can be. It seems more challenging to me.
It does. And then the other thing you want to do is after you've invoiced your customers, you may want to pay your own invoices. Because say you get an invoice where you can get a discount of 25% if you pay it in 15 days. That 25% could save you a lot of money. Depends on how much the invoice is for. So a lot of companies, if they invoice you, they'll give you a discount if you pay within a certain number of days. So I always tell customers, if you can afford it, pay your invoice before the date so you can get that discount. Especially if it's like a 25% or 50%.
Is that something you just ask about?
You negotiate that typically when you start working with the vendor.
That if we pay by a certain point, then it's a lower rate?
Yes.
Okay.
You can negotiate like that.
That sounds cool. I got to try that.
The other thing you want to do is make sure that if it's time for you to cut your payroll your payroll checks, you cut the checks. Or at minimum, if you're not cutting checks that week, just make sure that anybody that has worked for you, time is appropriately put into whatever system that you're using to track time. Because the one thing you don't want to be doing is trying to process payroll and then go back for 2 whole weeks and try to figure out time cards. So on a weekly basis, I tell people, check the time cards weekly. Just make sure there's no gaps. Just to make sure somebody didn't clock in and never clocked out.
Do you recommend a certain frequency of paying employees?
Generally, I tell people anywhere from, I tell people like every 2 weeks is the kind of like the average. Every 2 weeks on the 1st and the 15th. I tell people, it really kind of depends on what your cash flow looks like. So if you know you get most of your cash flow in at the beginning of the month, you may want to do every 2 weeks based off of that. Or if you want to pay I have some clients that have paid once a month.
Wow.
Which I feel if you paid somebody once a month, that has to be kind of hard. Like they have to make sure they stretch
hard
it.
for the employees.
Yes.
Yeah. I think twice a month is you said that's average.
That's the
right?
average, twice a month.
I think it's comfortable for probably both employees and employers.
Even if you do it on the 1st and the 15th. Like I worked for a company before and we had played on the 1st and the 15th, and that's the first time that ever happened. So I just was like, wait, what?
Our company does like every other Friday, so it's like
right. Most companies do every other Friday or every other Thursday. Mm-hmm. Like they're like everything has to be in by like Tuesday or Wednesday for that processing.
Yeah. We do a lot of direct deposit, so it's pretty automatic.
And actually, I think they're looking at changing it where most companies will be doing direct deposits. Very few companies will be doing live checks. I don't know if any company that does live checks now anymore. Maybe some of the car dealerships do.
All right. What else on a weekly basis?
Make sure you record all of your incoming money and outgoing money on the appropriate accounts in the accounting software, if you have an accounting software, or under the correct account, even if you're doing it with the green ledger paper. And yes, people still use green ledger paper.
Really?
Yes, unfortunately.
But if you use a software that automatically like tracks that, do you just print a report?
Just print a report.
Okay.
Just hit a button, print a report. If you are recording it manually, you just have to make sure you put it up under the right accounts that you want to go in.
Just to make sure you have a record of everything that came in.
Yes.
Okay.
And then the other thing I tell people to do on a weekly basis is look at your cash flow. You can put together a key performance index that will show you how much you're spending, if you were ever going into the negative, and you can kind of make changes, and that kind of helps you put together a much budget also. Mm-hmm. So if you know that you spend $2,000 on Monday and Tuesday, but you don't spend a lot the rest of the week, and if you have that savings account we talked about before, you know if you need to move money from the savings account or all that, you'll know that looking at your cash flow plan. And cash is king, so you will make sure you have that.
When you start working with a company who screams out for help, do you find that a lot of these things aren't really being done or done thoroughly?
When I have talked to clients, they come to me with a shoebox.
Yeah, okay. I just want to make sure I wasn't the only one.
They come with the shoebox, and they're like, here is my shoebox of stuff. I need you to go through this and figure it out. And then my questions are always, what are your goals for your business? Where do you want your business to go ultimately? So from that, I can start putting together a strategic plan in my mind and on paper to discuss with the owner of, to get you to this point, these are the things we have to do to get to that point.
Because I'm a chiropractor, right? But I think a lot of people who have different trades and professions and things that they like to do in business, even if you're a chef and making a food product or anything like that, a service that you provide, we're not necessarily business people.
Right.
And so, like, everything that you said on even the daily basis, which was just so simple, like review cash and note your transactions, I'm like, that seems complicated. When you say it, it doesn't. It just seems like I don't get it. And then the weekly things, of course, I'm paying my employees and I'm paying off my invoices, but I'm not doing it in as organized a fashion as you talk about.
It doesn't have to be in an organized fashion.
And are receipts really necessary? I guess they are. I'm not saying they're not. I'm just saying.
Well, the reason why I tell people to keep the receipts is because what happens if the IRS comes back and do an audit on you in, let's say, 4 years from now?
I got my half-empty shoebox.
That you probably take to your tax person, like, here is everything. Yeah. And people do not understand, when you take a shoebox to your CPA or your tax person, that is so frustrating for us. Mm-hmm. Because the time that it could have taken us to do your tax return in probably less than an hour. Mm-hmm.
Now it's going to take hours and hours.
Hours, because now we got to go through all your receipts. We got to categorize everything, and then we got to put it all together.
But if you do everything on credit card, I'm just asking, right? If you do everything on credit card, do you need to save the receipts, or can you just look at the statements?
You can look at the statements. The only thing is, sometimes they ask, well, how do I know this is what that was? So, like, for instance,
it's not itemized on the statement.
It's not itemized on the statements. Right. So, for instance, I just had a client that I was talking to who was actually had to go back and refile a tax return, believe it or not, from 2008, which was 10 years ago, right? And they want to know, one of the things that she had was office rent.
Okay.
So she, of course, had where on her credit card that she paid that, but they were like, well, how do we know it was for office rent? She's like, it says a rent charge. They was like, that could have been where you lived.
Home office?
Right. So she was like, what do I do? And the place that she was renting from is no longer in business.
So they can't even prove it.
So she can't even prove it.
Ouch.
So I was like, yeah, that's one of those
keep that
situations.
stuff.
You got to keep it. And now, by things being in the cloud,
It's so easy to do.
It's so easy to save it in the cloud these days.
All right, we're winding down. Let's talk about monthly now.
So monthly, of course, we're going back to cash.
Cash.
Balance your checkbook.
What does that mean in
balance
English?
your cash account. So what that means, look at your bank statements and look at what you have in your accounting books. Make sure the balances match.
Okay.
If there's any discrepancies, look to see where those discrepancies lies. And if it's a real true discrepancy that's supposed to be there, maybe it could be timing, something hasn't cleared or hasn't come through yet, make sure you make note of it to make sure that the next time it catches up.
Okay.
Also, people find fraud that way as well.
Within the company.
Within the company by balancing their books.
Okay.
So
like a self-audit.
Like a self-audit for yourself, just to make sure that nobody's stealing from you and nothing funky is going on. So I tell people,
this is going to be a lot more important on Friday when I win the $900 million Mega Millions jackpot. This is going to take a lot more time. I'm going to need a bigger shoebox.
So just don't forget about the small people that was sitting here with you the night before.
That's right.
That went through.
Never.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that.
Balance your checkbooks.
Yes. If you have inventory, you want to make sure you check your inventory.
Okay.
You could do what we call a sample audit, where you pick a couple of items and just check the counts, make sure that what is supposed to be there is there. And if you have inventory on your books, you will make sure that those numbers tie out as well. That also would tell you, say for instance, you are Mars and you do your inventory check, and let's say you're supposed to have 10,000 bags of peanut M&Ms. And you go check.
Wait, can I just picture that for 1 minute? Okay, I'm good.
But you only have 2,000 bags of peanut M&Ms.
Yeah.
Somebody needs to explain what happened to the 8,000 bags.
It wasn't me.
So you want to know if there's any discrepancies in inventory, because if you are an inventory-based company, inventory speaks a lot about your business. And if you think you have inventory that's not there, so when a customer calls and says, hey, I want to order this, and you do an order, or we're going to ship it out to you tomorrow, you go look for it and it's not there.
You're
that's
in
not
trouble.
a good look.
Yeah.
For you with the customer, and you as a business owner, like, wait, what happened to my inventory? So you want to make sure you check those things periodically, at least once a month. Just do a sample audit. And I tell any company, if you have inventory, you should definitely do an annual audit where you go through, shut everything down for the day and or 2 days, however long it's going to take, and go through and do an audit of every piece of inventory you have. Look at your books, make sure everything matched by item. If there's any differences, you may have some inventory that has expired, write it off.
Okay.
Write it off. Depends on what it is. You can donate it. You can do different things with it. But just write it off. Just always keep your inventory as clean and as neat as possible.
That makes sense. What about taxes?
Payroll taxes. Anything dealing with taxes, just make sure you pay them on time. So you have to pay payroll taxes to federal and to state.
So, yeah.
In this state anyway.
So in my case, our payroll company takes care of that.
Right.
But they just automatically do it. I'm like, hey, where'd all the money go? And they're like, oh, we did payroll taxes.
Right. And so some business owners do not use a payroll company to do payroll for them.
So you have to calculate it yourself, and
so you have to do it yourself
the
and
money
send it yourself
to the various governmental.
I definitely advise my clients, if you have employees that are their employees, straight employees, not contractors, to use a payroll software. To do that process, because
that's one of the things that I really find a lot of value in. They just make everything so easy.
And you don't have to think about it.
You don't have to think about it. Otherwise, there's a lot of thinking to do.
Right.
About paying them on time, taking out the right deductions, sending that money to the right places.
Just imagine somebody has to have child support withdrawn or alimony. Like, all that would go through the payroll, and you don't want to have to deal with that either.
No, I got 8,000 bags of peanut M&Ms to deal with. What What about other taxes?
Your other taxes, normally those are done once a year.
So you don't have to do quarterly?
Well, you can do quarterly state and also federal, but most time it's just going to be an estimate. You're sending out an estimate. And if you know you're going to owe, you may want to go ahead and send in that money that you're going to probably owe so that you don't have to worry about it at the end of the year. But if you're good, if you're not owing, you can still send an estimate. They're good. So normally with the business, it runs 3 months behind. So like right now, people are just now sending in their information from the quarter that would have ended in July.
That's me, right? Yes.
Yes.
What? And I know I get these statements from our accountant all the time. You know, these fancy reports with graphs and all sorts of things in there.
Yes.
They make me dizzy, so I just throw them in a drawer. But I assume I'm supposed to do something with them.
So you're probably getting a profit and loss statement and a balance sheet.
That's correct.
So in a profit and loss statement, the two lines that you're probably really more concerned about is your revenue line, which is at the top. And it's probably your net revenue line. And the other line that you're probably concerned about is that very last line that tells you profit or loss.
Oh, it's one or the other.
Correct.
For the quarter. Well, however often you do it.
Get it right. So profit means you made money. Loss means you lost money.
I see.
So you want that line to be a positive.
Not red.
You want it not to be red. Correct. So for most business owners, their concern is, what do these two numbers say? If they're in the red, they want to look at the information in between, right, to see where did I spend too much money or where did I not make enough money. So, and you can look at
it's critical analysis. So,
correct.
And then based on that, you can look at, I either need to spend less here, there, or the other place,
right,
or somehow start to earn more.
Start to earn more money.
All right. We're running out of time, but this is super helpful, even just for me. Like I said in the opening, I need to use that business card you gave me, and I will. My last question is, so once in a while, you know, when our business is really well, I'll get like a friendly note from the accountant in the end of March saying you owe like X number of dollars in taxes this year, state and federal taxes. And I will not have realized that we did better that year, significantly better than the year before, which is nice until that friendly note comes in March and you owe a lot more than you thought, you know, right, that you owe. Maybe it only happens to me. I don't know. But when along the year could I start to do this analysis to say, you know, how much are we going to owe in April and make sure that we're saving properly for it?
Well, actually, what I tend to do is I get my clients on a quarterly basis. We sit down quarterly and have a meeting. So after the first 3 months, next 3 months, we sit down and we look at the numbers.
Okay.
And I say, this is where you are based on what you're doing now. This is a projection of where you'll be come December.
Okay.
So based on that projection, I can also say, so if you're here based on what you're doing now, if you keep the same trend, this is what your liability looks like. So it give you idea.
So you do it every quarter?
I do it every quarter.
Yeah, that would be great.
Do it every quarter, just so they know, like, okay, if I keep trending the way I'm trending, this is what it looks like. If I bring in more revenue, I know that this number right here may be worse, unless I'll have an offset somewhere. Or if I'm already trending low starting out and if I'm not planning to ramp up, I already know, like, okay, I'm already low than I was last year. I'm probably not going to ramp up too much more, so I may be a little better off this year for taxes. But I think it's important to meet with clients at least once a quarter, face to face.
I like it. We haven't been doing that.
You should set that up. Put it on your calendar to stand in meeting once a quarter with your accountant.
Have M&Ms. You said pie and M&Ms, and I'm trying to think about accounting and ledgers.
Well, you know, there's pie charts.
I know. That's the one part of math I really dig. Shar, thanks a million for being here. Where can we find you online?
I'm at the number 9, the letter NTH level.com.
Ninth level.
Yes.
.com.
Yes.
At home, thanks for listening. If you're starting a new business or trying to run one, I hope you got some valuable information here. If you have a topic you'd like us to discuss, send us your suggestions to info@informedpregnancy.com.